This engine right here is, I believe, a Zephyr. And it's a 4-cylinder 5.3, 5.4 horsepower. And I cannot believe they actually even made money in this thing during the Depression when they were paying guys about 10 cents a day. It's the most complex engine I've ever worked on in my life, and it really doesn't run all that good for the amount of complexity it is. It was sold as a smooth. It's my comment on this engine right here was, what were they smoking?
Well,
I mean, what were they? It's crazy.
Lincoln, be careful, because we have a member of the Hydra-drive Boating Club who's in the process of
redoing one. Well, I did.
Here's
one right
we mention
here.
any names, you know.
What is he smoking?
Hey, I did one too. So they fascinate me because they are a technology that was carried way too far, but that was kind of the tradition too. The Evinrude, the Eltos, like Bill Androlitis said, it was an engineer's engine for an engineer.
There we go.
You know, that 4-cylinder Elto Speedster or whatever it was he was. And this right here,
Yeah, this looks interesting.
this is an Evinrude fast twin. This engine incorporated every bearing technology that was available in 1927. It's got a tapered roller bearing and ball bearings in the lower unit. It has roller bearings on the crankshaft, roller bearings at the top and bottom of the crankshaft, and cage roller bearings in each connecting rod. And this thing produces a lot of horsepower. It's 11 horsepower, and this thing is hot. It was the hottest engine. They made this in
It says 14.
4 different sizes.
14 horsepower.
14 horsepower, is that what it says? Okay.
1929, 14 horsepower. Wow.
But they came out with it in 28.
Okay.
And they came out with 4 different engines that were just miniature or larger of each one, but they cleaned up in the New York Marathon. But like everything, they didn't sell well, and I guess a guy named Watkins was the designer of this, from what I can understand. I've been asking a lot of people, and the best answer I got was from Gary on the site. He feels this guy named Watkins was he was a engineer that worked for Briggs and Stratton. He went to work for the company, and he designed these. So he was a very savvy guy on what was new and what was coming on in 1927. But it is a very, very impressive engine. Of all the engines from this era, this one impresses me the most.
And you bought this from Douglas Penn.
I did. Doug Penn, I bought this from him. It came to me. It was like brand new. I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
I got it had new spark plug wires, and it was so old, the spark plug wires, that you couldn't even advance or retard the timing. It would spring right back because the spark plug wires had taken a set to them. So my guess is this thing was redone somewhere in the 50s and never used.
And we're going to be visiting him Tuesday.
Tuesday,
Tuesday,
right?
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Great.
Hey, was this underwater exhaust new at that time, or is that?
No, that's a really good comment, David. The underwater exhaust, believe it or not, by 1927, people were really getting pissed in a lot of these lakes at the amount of noise, because everybody was racing. Everybody was. And there were legislation being passed right and left on a lot of these lakes to quiet these engines down. So running them with a closed exhaust was, a real big deal. I mean, they were really trying hard to run these engines. The only one that really did it successfully is the Lockwood Chief. Finn Ergens designed an exhaust system that worked and it worked just as well with the exhaust on as it did with it off. But a lot of these engines, what they do is take the mufflers off, and they were racing them, and they were really loud.
And this has no water impeller, I assume. It's cooled by just
yes,
a
no.
flow
This is your intakes right here, and the standard version had a hollow propeller that had a vacuum on the backside. In other words, the shaft, it would pull out of here, but this is a solid propeller that's on it now. But the original version, the standard propeller that came with it, filled in this, and it had holes on the back side of the wheel. So as the engine was turning around, the vacuum the pressure would be pressure feeding from the front as it's going through the water, and the vacuum on the backside will be pulling it through the engine. That was a fairly standard way to do it in the 20s.
Yeah.
And yeah, Doug Penn, everything I've ever gotten from him has been fantastic. I got another engine down there. Okay, these are these engines right here. This one came from Willis Spear. This is a Super Silent 6 from the 50s, push button, like Chrysler cars. Has a push button neutral. Has a spring down here that engages and disengages. This is a Mark V, same rig. Has a spring drive in here, same engine. The only difference between these two is this had spiral bevel gears, which blew up, and you ended up having to change the gears that weren't here into this one. So, other than the fact that this had a fuel pump and a separate fuel tank, they were identical engines. This right here is a Super 5. It has no neutral, but again, it's just like this engine here. Very hard to work on, but they ran great. People loved them. Exceedingly hard to work on. These engines right here, this is a Mark 15, Mark 20, 1954. I think they only made the Mark 15 and 54. Really good looking engines. Running qualities.
They look
They look great.
alike.
The Mark 25, they did a lot better job on running. These don't start and run all that great. They've got a Bendix Scintilla mag in them that was overbuilt, and they didn't operate all that well initially. But I like the engines. It's my favorite engine of all of them. This is the Super 10. The Hurricane that most people remember, it has the little wings here. It had a real hot, this is not a Super 10. This is the KE7. This is the full gear shift.
Okay.
Yeah. Same power head as this right here is the KG7. This is the KE7.
Okay, Cruiser and Hurricane.
Cruiser, yeah. And that one had a full gear shift lower unit. It was Mercury's first full gear shift lower unit. This one right here has no gear shift, and this has a Michigan Aquamatic prop, which really performed. It made these engines sit up and really bark.
Yeah.
It did, no question.
And these Hurricanes, they raced quite a bit, weren't they?
Yes,
Hurricane?
yes, but those would be the racing engines over there. These were raced a lot
By cottage
locally, cottage racers, yeah.
Wow.
These right here are controls that they came out with for the Mark 20, and they didn't work. Mercury was their first major recall with those controls.
Wow.
I got those, Bob Grubb identified those controls, and I had absolutely no idea. I just knew they were Mercury, but I'd never seen them before.
He's down here.
Yep.
I'd never seen them.
He sent me the service bulletin where these were all. They told you how to set them up, and then the next service bulletin told you to send them back in, and they'd replace them with these Kimenic controls right here.
Oh, that's an interesting progression.
Yes. Well,
I never heard
they
that.
had to. I bet that cost them some serious money.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Might as well just finish up this row right here. Again, I talked about the KG7. That was a real hot cottage racer engine. It had the reputation of being the fastest in the 50s, but I'm not so sure that it actually was. I'm on the cusp of testing this against the Chris Craft Commander and the Sweet 16 Champion, and we'll see who does the best. This right here is a pre-war two-cylinder Mercury. Again, it's Key Caber's design, sword edge design, very thin lower unit, oscillating water pump in there, not a impeller, and it has reed valves, but it also has a 3-port induction system as well, and it's got a very odd carburetor, but it does run quite well. I have no complaints with its running quality, but it had no roller bearings in it. It was solid bearing. That's a K4 alternate. Made 1940, Palmer Sargent, again. I don't know if I bought it from him or he gave it to me.
Oh, we got that up by your Bar Harbor area.
No, that was a gold one. That's the Wizard.
Oh.
That's that one right there.
Oh, okay. Oh.
That's the one that came from Bar Harbor.
You're right, that's right, yeah, remember that.
I don't know where this one is. It's just got your name on it, so I'm assuming
So-
that that's where it came from.
Yeah, so
You
what-
don't even remember, do you,
In
Palmer?
Bar Harbor, they had gold outboards.
Yeah, well, this is a
Wonder
Wizard.
why?
This is a pre-war K4. This is a post-war K4. Again, they look a lot alike, except that this is painted gold. Mercury had a silver version that looked identical to this, except it said Mercury instead of Wizard. You can buy the decals for up here, but these I painted by hand, but that's what was on it originally.
How'd you ever find this Mercury outboard motor sale? How is it signed? Right in front of the big sign there.
I have no idea.
That's a,
I don't know where that came from. Did I get it from you?
no, I didn't, no idea.
I don't know where it came from.
Huh.
I
Beautiful.
The Magic Barn, maybe.
I can't, no. Before the Magic Barn was in reality. This right here is a KE4. Great running engine. Really good running engine. They run fantastic. This particular one right here is, again, it's identical to this engine right here internally. I mean, they are identical.
They idle real well, is that what it is?
But this one right here runs extremely well. Idles well, runs well, starts well. What this has right here is a marathon cap. They would hook these up and squeeze gas into the tank while it was running along. And
and that's
typically
what they
they
probably
use
use
those
it.
great big gas tanks like the one we were looking at that Palmer gave me.
That's right, yeah.
Because the top half of this is the fuel tank. How
Yeah.
much would that hold?
I don't know, gallon maybe?
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
And this one came from Billy Babb. It was his dad's fishing motor. He was a high school teacher here or a grade school teacher here. I don't know what he's doing these days, but that was his dad's motor. This Western Auto right here, Palmer Sargent got this. As I said, we got it, let's see. I don't know what the deal was. Anyhow, I've got a note here that says on this thing, this engine
I remember.
and Mercury's KD4S, which meant it had a manual, it had a recoil starter on it. This engine right here and the KD4 were identical, and the dealers complained so bitterly that Mercury finally ended up taking parts that were not good for working for Mercury. They'd match them up at either end of the rejection scale on a curve, and they'd make the engines out of that. That's why a lot of the parts are different, because they're by measurement different sizes. Okay, these two are Lawsons right here. This came from one of my students, Benjamin Lockwood. He found it upstairs in the Parker Marine. It was up underneath the World War II bomber identification things they had during the war. All the kids had to learn what bombers looked like so they could be observers in case the Germans ever came to town. And that's a single cylinder. I actually made it up out of 2 engines. I didn't have everything. He had all the covers, and they were the parts that were hard to come by. I think I used a different power head internally. And then this Lawson right here, I bought from Donnie Gordon, who was a real big dealer down down the southern end of Sebago Lake. What's that big town down there?
Oh, I can't think of it.
I can't.
I don't.
Wyndham.
Wyndham.
Yeah, Wyndham.
We always met him at the boat shows.
And he was an enormous dealer, but things just got out of hand.
Yeah. Now, I noticed these pictures up here, the top picture up here, picture of this fellow who seems I recognize, but he had more hair. Yeah, I noticed that. Youngin', yeah. Those
A lot younger.
what year
yes.
was that now?
Gosh.
What's it say in the paper up there?
Lincoln County News is gone, long gone.
1995.
1995. Wow. And you come down here, another picture of Lincoln here with Palmer and Roscoe Bessie.
Yeah, look about 10 years old.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
right. Bunch of kids. Yeah. And that
Palmer
was,
actually had hair and black hair too, no less.
it's a P.F. Fly sneakers, yeah, what it is.
This is a Scott Atwater 116. They made a number of engines. They were complex, ran okay, but they had too many gadgets and gadgets on them, and they can break. This is this Champion Hydra-drive, even worse. I mean, I think the design work was fairly good on them, but this particular engine right here is about as complicated an engine as I have ever worked on. It's got a Hydra-drive lower unit. In other words, it has a hydraulic pump in the lower unit that drives the propeller around so you can rev the engine up and the propeller barely moves. It took me 15 years to get this engine running right. I finally just gave up on it. The thing that got me going on it, for some reason I had the thing down on my bench, and a hydraulics guy came by and said, "Oh, that's a spool valve." And he was looking at the prop shaft. I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, that's a spool valve." And I said, "Oh, that's how the thing works." So it used lower unit oil to drive the propeller, and then when you went past this detent right here and into here, it had a clutch that moved in and engaged the forward gear, and it was a hard drive.
Where'd you buy that from, eBay?
No. A guy named Palmer Sargent.
Uncle Palmer,
Yeah,
right.
Palmer Sargent.
Wow.
eBay has been around for a long time.
Let's see, Stuart Woodman. This came
Oh,
from
Stuart.
Woodman. This
From
got
Thompson, Maine.
Yes, Thompson, Maine.
Yeah.
And let's see here. This is a Flambo. Let me see, where the heck did... Oh yeah, Flambo. Mike Bianco at White's Marine down in Rhode Island. This is a three-port engine that was pretty obsolete by the time they came out with this, but what's really odd about this engine is it's built on the vertical rather than the horizontal. Most of these engines are assembled lower unit, midsection, power head. This engine is bolted all together at once. You put in the gears, the drive shaft, the pistons, and so forth, and then you clamp the other side onto it. And so it's assembled differently. It's an odd engine. They do run, but they don't run very reliably, and they're hard to start, and they've got a very complex carburetor in them, and yeah, they were cheap, but they didn't run very good. This engine right here is a Wisconsin, and this came from a fellow by the name of Horace Ransom. He's passed away now. Where'd this one come from? Mike Bianco already said that. Okay, this came from Horace Ransom, and he remembers this engine going out with his father in 1927. He went out on Lake Winnipesaukee, and he was terribly embarrassed that they were in such an tired old engine. Now, in 1927, these Johnsons here would have been the latest and greatest, and they look pretty damn old. But
Right.
he was embarrassed with this thing. But this runs very, very well. It's a Wisconsin. It's an almost identical knockoff of an Evinrude rowboat motor.
Yeah.
I mean, there were probably 5 manufacturers that copied it directly. So, and it runs very well. First time I started this thing up, I was so shocked that it started and ran. I was up at the wooden boat school, and it leapt out of the barrel and tried to... It had so much thrust in the lower unit for 2 horsepower. I didn't expect it, and it was quite spectacular. This engine right here, Aero Marine. This came from a fellow by the name of Bill Disson. His grandfather and his father worked on the chainsaw blades for Carl Kiekever's Lightning Lombard during World War II. He negotiated with Carl Kiekever. He bought this engine in Long Beach, California, and it's actually a McCulloch. But McCulloch had sold out all their outboards and all their divisions, and I guess this company bought this, and they must have had something to do with Carl Kiekever or wanted to annoy him, because Carl had a company called Aero Marine as well. And this is not his company. And he hated McCulloch because of that World War II chainsaw deal that McCulloch tried to cheat him out of it. And he managed to hang on to it. But I guess the Dissons also wanted McCulloch to win it because he was a much nicer guy to deal with. And Bill Diston thinks that they put these Aero Marine tags on here on the side just to annoy Carl Kiekever and painted it black for the same reason. And I think the story probably is true.
Lincoln, going back to this picture here, okay?
Yeah?
I recognize that as being the old shop down on
Right.
Route 32 and Route 1.
Right.
Now,
It is.
How many years ago was that now, you think? We
I
first
moved
started.
up here probably 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is way back.
This right here is a Lockwood Chief. This was the Mercury of the 20s. It was a hot engine. It was the engine to beat. I think the Evinrude was faster. I think it had, but it didn't have the popularity that this thing had. Finn Ergens was the guy who designed it. He ended up working for Evinrude and Johnson. And a lot of people raced it for at least 2 or 3 years.
This is 1927, was it?
Yeah. This one's 1928. 1928.
From-
They came out with a Chief.
Acquired
from. I paid for
Oh, you
this
paid
one.
for that one?
I
Finally,
paid for that one.
finally.
Yes.
Yeah.
It says acquired from Palmer Sargent. So
I like
it
how
must
it depends on
finally.
acquired. Yeah. You ought to add finally to it.
Yeah. Right. You never had any trouble with me, Palmer.
There's a pause.
All right. This engine right here, Starling jet. It's one of a bunch of different manufacturers in the late 50s, early 60s. They'd made a Clinton Powerhead, which was a manufacturer who'd make a Powerhead for anybody, and then they put their own leg on it to had an impeller here and it drives. It's fun because it's sort of weird. But that's about all I can
Jet
say
set?
about it. It's not. It works, but barely. It's nothing like a propeller. It just doesn't have that kind of zip. It was the whole deal was that it wouldn't get caught in weeds. Well, weeds get sucked into these things as easily as anything I've ever seen. So you can't run them in the weeds any better than a regular propeller engine.
Make smoothies with that.
Yes, you could.
Lincoln, I got a question over here.
Yes.
You said that this Lockwood Chief was a bit 1 mile per hour slower.
No, it
slower
was
than-
It even often beat Lockwood's racing version because it was simple.
Well-
This is a racing version right here. It had 2 carburetors, separate oilers, and yes, it went about 1 mile an hour faster, but it was so hard to keep in tune and keep running that these things, typically the racers would use as
More
standard
dependable,
engines. Yeah, they were more dependable and run better.
That's interesting. Huh, only 1 mile per hour faster. Huh.
Well, what I was told,
Yeah, whatever.
when you hear 1,000 different stories. I wasn't racing then, so.
Yeah.
But we did talk to guys that did. This guy that just died here, Nicky Wyeth's uncle. There's a picture of him right there. The start of the race. I don't think that shows up, does
What's
it?
his name?
His name was Dud Rockwell.
Oh, Dudley, yeah.
Yeah, Dudley Rockwell. And
Right.
that picture down there of that racing Lockwood Chief,
Over here.
that was what's the name of the cleaning supplies you used to sell?
Oh, yeah, right.
Anyway,
Full of brush.
Full of brush.
Full of brush.
That's Fuller's engine. Right
Oh,
there.
Howard Fuller, right, okay. Full of brush.
This right here is a K50. It was the first alternate firing twin Johnson came out with. Very impressive engine, but I suspect very expensive to make. They started making it as a result of their V45 that they came out with. They started on 2 cylinders and they realized that the thing ran great on just 2 cylinders, and that's why the next year they used
The inline.
two-cylinder alternate firing twin is basically half of that V45.
Huh. And this is, what model was that now?
That's a K50.
K50, okay.
Yeah, they made it right up into the,
Then they're the KR50, the racing versions, right?
that thing, that's got plenty of zip.
Okay.
This is a K35, I think, so what it is. This is the first engine I ever restored, K35, 1927. Johnson, all the other manufacturers, with the exception of Cayley, had a 17 cubic inch engine. And in 1927 or 26 or 27, when the APBA decided to let outboards race, they chose the 20 cubic inch engine, and Johnson was not happy. And they were by far the biggest manufacturer. I mean, way ahead of everybody else. And this engine was This engine performs very, very well. No complaints. Got an aftermarket twist grip on it. The Harley Davidson twist grip, same as your Evinrude over there. They use the same one, but Johnson never offered that. That's an aftermarket. I don't know who made it for them, but that was it. Now this power head right here, I blew up the original one, I think 4 times, and it finally got so tired that I bought a power head complete from Doug Penn, the bare block, but it had the pistons and everything in it. It came and rings were all free. I just bolted it up, and that engine ran produced a good mile an hour faster on the same boat with that new power head. So the other one was pretty tired out. This is a MS-15, 1939, 1940. It runs okay. It's a 3-port intake on this thing, and the engine's too small to really idle well. I'm not pleased with the idling capacity. Maybe some of them do run better than this one, but this one runs quite well, but it still isn't. And that's the reason why I think they came out with that crankshaft port intake on those TD20 and some of the other ones. These are Cayley racing engines right here. Now we're on the racing corner. The rest of these engines are all racing. This is the first racing engine to come out, 1926. This is the KL20 Racer or the Master 5. Nobody seems to know what the real name of it was. You could buy just the lower unit from Cayley and put it on your standard engine, or you could buy the engine complete. Cast iron pistons, cast iron. Does not adequately cool. It overheats after running fast and hard. It has a pump in it, and but the lower unit was hot. You could use either tractor or pusher. This is set up with the tractor, which was supposed to be the fastest. And this engine had real breathing problems. So in 1928, they came out with a KL30 Racer. And this had great hype. I don't know who they had advertising for it, but it was great hype. And so I had to have one of these engines. I bought it down in New Jersey. And when I got it, I struggled with the thing. I mean, I put in pistons, I put in, just endless. And I never really could figure out why the engine wouldn't start or run very good. And it turned out that Bill Androlaitis and I both figured out that what happened was the company was just using aluminum pistons for the first time, and they thought the expansion was greater than it actually was. So these things, when they made them, they'd break in very quickly, and very, very quickly they'd pass the point at which they would no longer work, because it's a 3-port engine, and it has to have, the piston skirt has to have good sealing against the bore, and when it's too big, they can't do it. So they don't draw well and didn't work well. And so he made oversized pistons for this thing. We got it running great, but it still is inadequate compared to the other ones from that same era, which are the Lockwood Chief and the Evinrude Fast Twin. But what's interesting about this is it has the air intake valves, which you have to get the engine running, and then you open these valves, which get extra air into the engine right here. It's got them on either side. You have to open them up and run it. So